So we're back with Dr. Nan in the closet, Good Enough Mother World headquarters, and having a great conversation about sex. And I think one of the things that I hear a lot of women talk about is a depleted sex drive.
I think that women really don't suffer as much as people think from what they call hypo or lowered sexual desire. I think it's because people don't understand that female sexual desire is different than male.
Well, I find this interesting because I think that when you're young and you're 19, I don't care if you're a 19-year-old boy or a 19-year-old girl, everybody wants to have sex, and then yes. I find that as you get older and all of the, just literally the weight of life comes into play, where I think, and I'm not the therapist, that's you, but it just feels like men are able to compartmentalize a little bit more. So whatever's going on outside of their lives, once they close the bedroom door, they can kind of get in the mood. Whereas for us, we're like, I'm thinking about the laundry, I'm thinking about my job, I'm thinking about my kids. Oh my God, it's picture day tomorrow, so I have to have a white shirt and khaki pants. I have to, like all of that stuff. So the kids are right down the hall. How on earth can I really relax and kind of lean into this? That's how I see it. Is that?
I think you're absolutely on target. And what I would add to that is, first of all, women work harder than men. They work hard. They work at work, and in the house they work harder than men. So I think women have more responsibility, more stress in the family than men. But the difference between males and females, which I think is one of the issues that we really need to unpack today because it's really important. Men naturally when they're in the womb, they get a number of circuits, way more circuits in the brain that are sensitive to testosterone, where women have more circuits in the brain that are sensitive to oxytocin. Very different. Mm-hmm. So, in other words, male brains kind of have these internal gonads that are very sensitive to their own testosterone.
Wow.
So they are much more likely over the lifespan of a relationship to maintain what we call spontaneous sexual desire, horniness.
Horniness, I think, is a clinical term, is it not?
Definitely.
It is going to be today. Term. There you go,
it's
ladies and gentlemen.
It's a clinical term. So what the misunderstanding that I think most people don't get is that it's, and of course, let me preface this by saying that there are women who have spontaneous sexual desire all through their lives and there are men who don't. Mm-hmm. Because we're talking about generalities about how the brain is wired, but right. This gets complicated because we can have our biological sex be what our genes are, but how that gets translated into what happens to the brain and development and the body is a separate story, which is fascinating. But I'll come back to that later. Let's stick with the spontaneous sexual desire stuff. So men tend to think about sex a whole lot more. They're wired in their brains. They have so much more places where the testosterone can stimulate, like the receptors. Women will have active sexual desire horniness, often in the beginning of a relationship, and sometimes over time, and compound it with what you said before, working harder, being nurturing, doing all of these other things, multitasking. And what can drop off, and what often does, is the spontaneous sexual desire. So then the couple's really upset because the man is miserable because his wife doesn't, quote, want to have sex. The woman thinks something's wrong with her. Then the man might start whining, which is not very sexually attractive. And then the woman is like kind of feeling, oh no, there's this big issue. And then they end up in my office. What they don't understand is that even if you're not feeling spontaneous sexual desire, we have what's called receptive sexual desire, which means that if we get aroused, if something gets us going, whether it's physical stimulation or something really cool that our partner does, or we're really turned on by life for some reason, something really great happens, we're much more able to contact that energy, but it doesn't show up at first. So let's say you're home.
You have to plan it, sort of.
Well, but also jumpstart it.
Yeah, jumpstart.
Which is why vibrators can be good. We'll talk about vibrators later. I always tell people, like, get the engine going. Arousal. The old model of sex was desire. Right. Then you get physical arousal. Then you do your orgasm plateau orgasm resolution. That's the Masters and Johnson and various. But now there was a woman up in Canada, Rosemary Besson, who figured out that often women who don't have access to that really like spontaneous horniness, if they're not feeling that there's something wrong or bad with that, you can access that energy by first doing the arousal, getting things going, getting the juices flowing, either through physical stimulation or a partner being very seductive or something kind of get you into it. And then once you get aroused, then the desire kicks in. The stress hormones deplete your neurotransmitters. When your neurotransmitters are depleted, you're going to get more anxious, you're going to get more depressed, and then it becomes a cycle. And then what I see as a big piece of this is the inability to experience pleasure. In general, the word is anhedonia, without pleasure. So it becomes this negative cycle. We do not prioritize pleasure in a sustainable, satisfactory way. We're like running around like chickens without a head. The point being is that we don't really know as a culture here in the States, and this is becoming a problem in other countries too, how to slow it down a little bit. We're running. And when you're running on empty, you're not going to feel expansive. So maybe we need to think about these symptoms of sexual depletion as a bigger issue that gets our attention, that we can get our own attention to make some changes in our lives.
So really what I'm taking away from this big picture is to tap into our inner horniness, we need to just slow it down a little bit.
And be in our bodies.
And be in our bodies. I love it. Dr. Nan, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Okay. Hey, like what you saw? Join Jem on social media. Subscribe to Good Enough Mother on YouTube and tell a friend.